operations like joining the data set, or finding the intersection, the common elements between the sets. That we will look at it now. Okay, so how do we find out the common elements between the sets, all the things. And set can even in the case of set like dictionary, it cannot have duplicate values. It cannot have duplicate values. In one way it is helpful in terms of removing or discarding the duplicate elements from the list using set. And also, right, using set we saw how to add a value into a set. Set is also mutable. You can modify the values like by adding the data elements into set. You can, right, so you can insert the values, and you cannot use, what is that, you cannot use the index values to access the elements, because it is unordered elements. It will be stored here and there. And also we discussed about the control structures, right? If and if else and nested if conditions, right? If control statements, how to implement them in Python. Praveen, probably you can watch my video. I will share it. Sorry, I was staying awake throughout the night yesterday. We'll upload the video after this session. Today and yesterday's session, we'll upload it together. You can start look at that one and start practicing it. Practice. Okay, if you don't practice it, you are gone. Even experienced person, right? If we don't practice it even for few days, you are gone. So now we will before we dive into the control structure again, what we will do is we will work on the set. We will continue with sets. Okay, 1 second. Let me just. That's what I would suggest you all. See, everybody, right? Even we are busy, and make sure that, right, you set alarm in your mobile also. See, even everybody, right? We are doing more than one, job at a time, right? So in that case, there is no compromise. Everything should go hand in hand. Right? So just because I'm doing one thing, we are not supposed to ignore other thing, right? So we need to do multitasking. You should be very good at it, and don't miss out the session, right? So I cannot call you during the session, right? So make sure that you are joining on time. Everybody is busy. Everybody, at least you guys are lucky, somehow you all. It's good one way, right? So you all escaped from corona, but here, right, we suffered like anything. Just a second, yeah. You can also start the kernel like this. And go to new and open the Python 3, and also open yesterday thing I did not send, right, the script. I will send you the script also today, right? After the session we'll send you the scripts so that you can, till that loads. And let me open MySQL also. I don't know how many of you are familiar with SQL SQL commands. Because you should be versatile, you should be knowing everything. Okay, you cannot say I know only this one, then right, it will not be good. Then they think, right, you are not flexible, you are not going to add any value. If I recruit a candidate who is very has lot of reservations. Okay, look here. So okay, we will continue with this one. And yesterday topic was this one. 1 second. We'll put some index everything, right? So that it should be very neat. Whenever, whichever topic that you want to explore it later point in time, or practice it, or to reference it from my script, right? All you need to do is just click the href. I'll give you some the reference thing here, reference link, so that for example, list. If you click the list, it will take you to the list related cell. This is called cell. Okay, fine. Let us define a set now. S is equivalent to, how do I define a set? Using the curly braces. For example, 2 comma 4 comma 6 comma 8. You need it is not that you have to use numeric value only. You can use the combination of both string as well. Okay, so now I just want to check what type of data structure. S is this set data structure. I cannot use the index to access these elements, each and every element, like how I did it in the case of list and other. List is also called list, tuple, and string. These are all called iterables. What do you mean by iterable? The object which you are able to iterate it using for loop, right? That is what called as iterable in simple term. For example, I am going to create another set. S1 is equivalent to, let's 4 comma 5 comma 6 comma 7 comma 8. If I wanted to join these two, okay, and S1 is equivalent to yes, all you need to just put this one, SS1. If you type it, this is nothing but union. This pipeline is nothing but union. So 2 4 5 6 7 8. Look here. So this is it is joining both the data set, both the set values, but excluding the duplicate values. Look here, 2 is not there here, okay, and then 4 in both the sets it is there, hence it is printing it only one time, including it only one time, and 5 is not there, and so hence it is including. 6 is available more than one time, hence it is including it only one time, because the set cannot have duplicate values. This is union. Okay, this is union. And also what you can do is there is an operator called union. S dot union, I guess, union of S1. Yes, you can use union also. The first set is my S dot union of S1. You can do it opposite also. S1 dot union of S, right? End of the day, we want to combine both the unions. Either you can use this one, or you can use union function itself, because in the real time scenario we might have to generate the data using some for loop, or let's say my function or method which generates some data, or it produces some output data. That output data we wanted to store it in a set, because set is very much helpful in terms of eliminating the duplicate. And what will happen is you will have to, in the real time scenario, you cannot use only one set, right? So let's say your function or module, your custom function or custom method will produce two different outputs. You want to store it in two different sets, and then you want to combine it. The reason why you are using set is to eliminate the duplicates. Not all the cases we use key value pair. If there is a need that you need to use key value pair, then you can use that one. For example, price, right? We use the cost price. We have something called cost price, right? So the cost price of the products, I want to store it, but the price should not be modified. So this is the important thing you need to remember it. They will ask you in the interview. So when will you use tuple? When I can use a list? In case you have you wanted to implement some security, like the price should not be modified by every users, then what you do is you can use tuple. Tuple is also iterable, list is also iterable, string is also iterable, but string is immutable, and tuple is also immutable. Remember this. So what are the other things Yeah, so what you can do is you can compare sets also. Okay, you can compare sets, and for example, you want to do some kind of minus of, let us do one thing. Let us use some days, something like that. For example, Monday, Tuesday, and let's say you have something called Friday, right? Friday, and you have another days too is equivalent to you have something like Monday. We'll say, right? We will use Monday to same thing. Monday, comma Tuesday, comma Sunday, something like that. Comma Tuesday. It is case sensitive. Make sure that if you want to do some comparison, or if you want to find out the difference, whatever you do it, you need to use the same case here. So here I'm going to use something like Saturday. I want to find out the difference between days and days too. Right? I want to find out the difference between these two sets. How can I do that? So you remember in school time we studied the Venn diagram. You just remember the Venn diagram. Okay, and in the Venn diagram, one second. Okay, so you just keep that in mind. The Venn diagram, in the middle one is your this one, right? The one second. Let me just. I think in PowerPoint I can show you that. So where is the Venn diagram? I'm just looking for Venn diagram. Or let us do one thing here. This is a waste of time. What I will do is I will just take this one. This is the circle, and you have another circle here. You just think that this is your right the intersection part, the intersection, and here I am going to use some other color, something like this. In this case it is a white colored one, and here it is like this. Here also it is white. So what is A minus B? This is set A, set B. What is A minus B? So whatever values are there in A which is not there in B, right? So the common values between these two, exclude that, and also excluding the common value between these two sets, right? Whatever the remaining values that are there in your set A, that is what your difference. I'll just put days minus days 2. This is okay. This is list, that is the I should have used set. No problem. We can use curly braces here. Yeah, here I did not specify the curly brace. See, what is the what are the elements that are common between these two? Monday, Tuesday. Exclude these values, right? And which value that is not there here compared to these two sets? Friday is not there in days 2. Similarly, you can do days 2 minus days. right? If you remember this, the excluding the b value and the common value also, excluding the common value and the b value, whatever the leftover in your a, the set a, that is what your minus. And also you have something called minus operator. There is a function called minus is available. So these are all okay. Here there is no, I think so it is a difference. One second. Yeah, this is the subtraction operator that is available. I think so. What you can do is, if you have any queries, right, what do you just type dot something like that, dot, and if you press tab, it will show difference. Look here, the difference, not the minus. They have given the plain English language, right? So the Friday. So either you can use the minus, or you can use difference, the days dot difference, or you can try days to dot difference days, right? So that way also you can find out the difference between the two sets. And also you have something called symmetric difference. How to find out? Finding out the symmetric difference. Finding out the symmetric difference. What is symmetric difference? The data that are there in both sets except the common value. Both the sets values will be taken, but it will exclude the common values between these two. Okay, so for that we will have to use something called days. This is complement. Okay, and days 2. Friday, Saturday, right? So the Monday, Tuesday is common for both, right? Exclude the common values, but include both set 1 and set 2 values. But when you use difference, right, what happened? It went literally by the common value, excluding the common value. Here also it excluded the common value, but it displayed only this value, right? Something which is not common between these two, right, from the first set. Whereas here in both the set, the uncommon values it will take and display. That is what a symmetric difference is all about. And you have, supposing you want to print only the common values, right? Common values. How do I do that? Days dot intersection, I think so. Intersection. See, when you press tab, it automatically display the list box. From there you can find out the command and just press select it and print it, right? So days, select it and execute it, or select it. The common values between these two sets are Monday, Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday. These are not common between these two. To find out the common values between the two sets, we use this one. One second, I'll just put the comment. Now you understood, right, the importance of comment. Symmetric difference. Okay, and now you understood symmetric. This is your difference. And union is common values, right? So union is common between common values. Not common values. All the values of both sets. All the values of both sets, but excluding the duplicates. Combine all the values of both sets. We will rephrase it. Combine all the values of both sets and exclude the duplicates. That is what this one you learned it. Exclude the duplicates. So now you understood how to use this one, this one, right? And the next one is we have something else called range. We'll discuss about range. We discussed about a list, tuple, all the things, and sets also, and dictionary also. And now we will look at what is range. We have something called range. Range is also an iterable. For example, if I say range 10, 0 to 10. So what does it say? If I want to see the values of this one, I need to use a list here. List of range 10. I give like this 0 to 9. So if you specify the upper value, right, 10, in this case 10, so it will print 10 values starting from 0. It will generate the values starting from the first to this one. That is what range does. Fine. So now if I specify something like let's say if I wanted to something like right, so I wanted to generate I'm going to use some values. I'm using the range, right? So here I'm going to use the range will generate, it is kind of sequence of values. It will generate the sequence of values. And if you specify the maximum value here, it will generate the values starting from 0 to this maximum value, right? 0 to, but a maximum in the sense, right, start from 0, and then end minus 1. The same principle is applicable here also, n minus 1. But in total 10 values here. Supposing you wanted to select the values 1 to 11, 1 to 10. If you want to print it, you need to start with 1, end with 11. This is the minimum value, this is the maximum value. If you don't specify the minimum value here, so in this case we did not specify the minimum value. If you specify only one value, that will be considered as the maximum value. So in this case we specified only one value, the 10 is considered as the maximum value. But if you specify one more value, at the maximum range can take only the 2 arguments. The first argument is nothing but your minimum value. Start from the minimum value. In this case, the minimum value is 1. Start from 1. End minus 1. Right? So n minus 1 is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Up to 10 it printed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new sets with this one. Let's say I'm going to say set 1 is equivalent to, I'm going to initialize a blank set. For I in range, let's I'm going to say range 5, I in range 5. This is for loop. We will see what is for loop a little later, right? So set 1 dot add of this one I, and then print set 1. So you remember yesterday we discussed about how do we discuss this one. Sorry, so this is a dictionary, right? So you need to use set upfront. Yeah, this is also a tricky one. This is also a tricky one. You remember, you saw, right? If I say set 1 is equivalent to, if I say curly braces, that means this set 1 is nothing but empty dictionary. But if you want to create an empty set function. So this is where most of them they get confused. For both set as well as the dictionary, we use curly braces to define it. But when you initialize a variable with curly braces, by default that one will be your dictionary. But how do I initialize a variable as a default set, right? Empty set. So you need to give like this, set function. So now I'm going to execute this one. Look here, set function. So here I created 2 empty set, and using this for loop I generated 1 to 4, right? 0 to 4. Since I did not specify the minimum, or I can specify 1, 5. If I specify 1, 5, start generate the values from 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all, 4 values, right? So this is minimum, comma, maximum minus 1. You just remember that, maximum minus 1. Similarly, you can generate values for set 2 also. Using add, you can iteratively include the values. Okay. And also we can perform the AND operator also. For example, I'm going to create another set. Set 2 is already there, right? I'm going to insert the values in the set 2 also. Here I'm going to say set 2. Okay. So, but here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say 1 comma 6. You can generate the values, or you can select generate some values, right? So static values using for loop also. Now let us do one thing, set 1 and set 2. So what is going to happen? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So set 1 and set 2. So what happened here? The AND, what does it do? It does the intersection, right? So the intersection, here itself, right? So I should have shown you here, and days and days 2. So either you can use intersection or you can use ampersand. Ampersand is also for the union, right? So it's nothing but the union between two sets. Either you can use, so ampersand is for union, minus is for difference, and this one is for symmetric difference, right? Symmetric difference, excluding the common values. Select all the values from both the sets, but excluding the common values. That is what symmetric difference. And what else we have seen it? The pipe operator is for union. The ampersand is for common values. This one is for the union. Or you can use union itself. You can use this way also. So hope you understood how to play around with the set, right? And also we have difference or minus, negative operator, you can use it. Okay, and what else we have? We discussed about the ternary operator yesterday. And what else we have seen it yesterday? Thank God it is working fine now, keyboard without causing any problem. So list also we discussed it, and if else condition, right? If a is equivalent to 5, do this one. Since this condition is true, the control comes here, it prints this one. So a is 5 plus 100 is 105. Same is it's valid. So this is called your ternary operator. If the condition is true, then do this, else you do this. But one drawback is you cannot specify multiple statement. Look here, in this case I can specify, for example, a is equivalent to a plus 100, and here if I say a plus a, you can specify more than one condition also, right? So here, okay, let's say a is equivalent to 5, a double equal sign 210. So 5 plus 100, 105, 105 plus 105, 210. So 105 plus 2 statements. You can use multiple statements when you use the traditional if else code block, okay? If block and else block. But whereas when you use ternary operator, you cannot use multiple statements. You cannot include multiple statements to execute in the if block code. But this is to check, make a quick check whether something is there or not, right? So for that purpose we'll be using it. And also we have seen in between I have used the uh, loops also, right? So for loop I used it so far. We will see how to use the while loop also. And one second, before that, I just remembered something called frozen set. Set one, I told you set one set is mutable. Here, if I say frozen, one second, let me check the syntax. So frozen set is like it's an immutable thing. Immutable frozen set object initialized. Frozen set function is built in. Yeah. So here, or simply if you press tab, can you see frozen set? It is not there. So hence you need to use it front there, or directly you can say frozen set. Something like that. Okay, frozen set of let's 2 comma 4 comma 5 comma 7, right? So this is your frozen set, and expected at most 1 and got 5. Okay. See, if you don't know the syntax, right, and if you remember only the function name, just keep the cursor followed by the open parenthesis and use shift tab. See, look here, the shift tab gives you the syntax of this one. Empty frozen set object, frozen set iterable. Inside this, right, I am going to say simply set 1, 1 2 3 4, frozen set 1 2 3 4. Frozen sets are immutable. For example, if you want to add something like this, for example, I am going to say f1 is equivalent to this one, and f1 dot add 10. There is no attribute add. So how is given here? And f set frozen sets are immutable. Look here. First of all, there is nothing called add, right? So frozen there is no attribute add. There is nothing called add. But whereas if you use the mutable set without frozen set, you can use the add function. Add is available with the traditional set. Okay, the function. Okay, this function is available with traditional set. Whereas if you create a frozen set, what is frozen set? You cannot add any value. You cannot modify. You cannot delete anything from this one. Okay. And that is one. First of all, in the set also, right, you cannot you can remove the values, you can add the values, you can remove the values, right? So you can you do that one. For example, in set 1 if I want to remove something, like remove, I can say the value directly, remove 3. Set 1, you can remove the values, because set the traditional set is immutable. But if you want to make it immutable because of security reason, I don't want anybody to make changes, or I don't want anyone to include the new values, or include the new value, or removing the values, and updating also they are not supposed to do it, right? In that case, you need to convert your set as a frozen set. First create a set and then make it part of your, or you can simply use inside this, right, curly braces. Inside the curly you can define all the values and your frozen set is ready. So that is pretty much about sets. We have covered comprehensively everything. And the next thing is range. I started discussing about range, right? So in the case of range, yeah, before I dive into that one, which one? The for loop. Yeah, if control structure, we discussed it yesterday, And before we dive into that one, let us understand the range in detail. So if you don't specify two values inside the range, that means whatever the value is specified is the maximum, that will be considered the upper bound. If you use two parameters, the first parameter will be your minimum and second parameter will be your upper bound. But if you use three values inside this and three values, let's see what happened here. And if you give this one, you remember colon, start colon, end colon, step size we mentioned, right? Increment by. So within, generate the values between 1 to 10. It generated behind the scenes, it generates, and then skip the values by 2. So after 1, 2 values after 1 is 3, 5, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. This is increment by 2. So the default lower bound is 0. You got it, right? So you need to remember this. If you remember this, it's fine. Okay, this is enough. This is sufficient for you to learn the next topic, like the nested loop, and then the control statement. We discussed it yesterday. And let us do one thing. Let us generate the values between 1 to 5. Supposing for I in, this I is nothing but variable. So I in my, let's I have something called what do you say, range, right? Range 10. Print I. It will take each and every element, right? So if I specify range of 10, it is nothing but 0 to 9 value will get generated. Print each and every element one at a time. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But if you wanted to print everything in a single line, what it is, comma, end is equivalent to this one. You just press this one, or you just leave space here, so that each and every value there will, it will be separated by a space. It will be neat. So you can generate the values using for loop also, right? If you want to generate some values, right, a bit between so and so, you can use the range function. Or if you want to iterate your for loop with the definitive values, then you can use range. And also, right, we have something like continue statement, and we have break statement, right? What is continue statement? It forces the loop to continue or execute the next iteration. So that is what the continue statement is all about. And for example, so what we will do is the same thing we'll try to do it with while. So what is while? I'll just explain you what is while is all about. For example, I have something called counter is less than, I'm going to say 5, and CTR is equivalent to CTR plus 1. I need to initialize this value. When you use while condition, CTR, you need to initialize this value with 0 here, in this case 0, and print. Print for example this one, counter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to generate the values 5. For example, I want to generate the values, right? So 10, 1 to 10. So what is the difference between for loop and while loop? Can someone unmute it and tell me what is the difference between for loop and while loop? So to achieve the same functionality, 1 second, let me just use the same thing, and is equivalent to this one, right? So I want to have, so okay, here what I do is I will start with 1, 11. But in the case of while, you need to evaluate an expression. This is called your expression. if the expression, only if the condition is true, the statements that are part of the while block code will get executed. Only, see, these two statements will get executed only this condition is true, or as long as this condition is true, iterate this loop and print the value or execute these two statements. But the difference here is, here I have used range. Here I don't have to use any condition, right? Here I don't have to use any condition. I simply specify the end here, definitive end here. But here, instead of using the definitive end, right, here I am going to use a condition. Only when the condition is true, this one will get executed. But in this case, we are not checking any condition, right? Whether the condition is true or not, the loop, right, will get executed. But inside this, you can use if condition to control your flow, right? You can control your loop. Okay, so don't print so and so, something like that, right? You can do it. But you don't have to evaluate the expression when it comes to for loop. So only when the condition is true, right? So why do we have to use for loop? First of all, it is used for sequential traversal, right? It falls under the category of definitive iteration. What do you mean by definitive iteration? Number of repetitions. You need to specify explicitly in advance the how many number of times it has to execute this value or this statement. You need to specify the the number of repetitions well in advance. But whereas here you don't have to specify the condition. Sorry, you don't have to specify the limit, right? So how many number of times, right? So maybe if I say customer, let's say this is purchase amount. Purchase amount is less than $10,000. Let's say you have a big data set, right? In that case, you want to check those customers purchase less than 10,000. I won't take that record. In that case, what will happen is the purchase amount is less than 10,000. Whatever values are there here, right? It will print it. It may be 50,000 customers. 50,000 customers, they would have purchased less than 10,000. Or maybe 1 million customers. But when it comes to for loop, right, here you are supposed to specify the number of repetition well in advance. Fine. So that is the thing that you need to remember it. Apart from this, in the case of while loop, you need to keep increment the counter, right? So the iterator variable, you need to keep incremented, whereas here you don't have to do it. Once you define the number of iterations here, it automatically iterates all the values. You don't have to increment the values. Whereas here, right, first you need to initialize this. What is CTR? Otherwise, it will throw an error. Okay. So 0 is less than 10. Yes, the control will come here. 0 plus 1 is 1. It will print, and then it will go and check the condition. The control will come back here and it will check. The next value is in the CTR we have 1, right? 1 is less than 10. Yes, print. 2 is less than 10. Yes. So finally 10 is less than 10. No, the control will stop here. Sorry, the loop will get terminated. Since 10 is not less than 10, 10 is equivalent to 10. It is not less than 10. Yes, Gilbert? Oh, my God. How foolish. No, I unmuted you all. My God, I kept on talking like an idiot. Oh my God. Sorry, 1 second. I'll just unmute it. I use some, the keyboard control. 1 second. I'll just, unmute it. Hey guys, sorry, I use some keyboard controls, okay, and because of which, right, somehow it went on mute. So you guys were able to understand so far whatever I discussed. So anyhow, it all recorded in my video, right? So you can watch that one also. See, I was talking about this one, right? This is the set. I'll just repeat it since it is my mistake. Okay, this is how you define that set. And to check the data type of this variable, you need to use a type function. Inside the type function, if you specify the variable yes, it says it is not a the conventional variable or the typical variable. It is a data structure called set, right? And here, let's say here I created a set and s1 and s1, right? So what I do is I want to combine the values of both these two. So hope I am audible to you all. Am I correct? But in between I was asking something and someone responded, right? Hello? Say hi at least. Hello, hello. 1 second here. I think I should be audible, right? Yeah, someone type. Yes. Okay, I muted you all. 1 second here. Someone has typed just now. You all can, yeah, you can. I think I'm audible to you all also, right? Yes, Kishore, am I audible? Am I audible? Say yes or no. Type it in the chat window, yes or no. Hello, hello. No, initially I used to mute you all. 1 second. I unmuted everyone. 1 second here. I did not do anything. 1 second. See, look here. Allow partition to. Okay. This is the one, right? Somehow it went into that mode. Fine. So, am I audible now? Okay. Sorry, yaar. Sorry, extremely sorry.
We can't able to have a response, Satya, since the message is coming that you are not allowing to.
Yeah, got it. So no. See, usually what I do is, right, when the user is logging in, some noise. Okay. So using for loop, you can iterate the iterables, right? So for example, for I in let's 1, 2, 3. What is 1, 2, 3? What is this inside the square bracket? This is what your list. List is an iterable. Similarly, you can use the tuple also. Tuple you can use it. How will you use the tuple? Parenthesis. Open parenthesis. Close the parenthesis. Remove the square bracket. Square bracket is for list and this is for tuple, right? So tuple. So whatever the object that if you can iterate it using the for loop, right? That is called your iterable. The list is iterable, tuple is also iterable, and string is also iterable. Okay, string is also iterable. So now what we will do is, if I was talking about the for loop, so you need to, if you wanted to print or if you wanted to display the values multiple times, right? For example, I'll start with a simple example. Let's say I want to print hello world. Fine, it is printing it, no issues, right? And somebody is telling you, hey, print it 3 times. What you do is, what you will do? You will obviously copy paste it 3 times and then you will print hello world. And somebody is asking you, hey, you need to print it 10,000 times. So can you copy paste it 10,000 times? It will take a lot of time, right? To perform some specific jobs repeatedly, we will be using loop. Okay. For example, for I in range of, supposing I want to print the values 10 times, right? Print 10 times. If you want to print hello world, I can use for loop. I am more of a keyboard guy, okay? That's the problem. Somehow I use some hotkey. See how many time it got printed, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, right? And also if you wanted to include some values here, right? So what you can do is, so let's j comma something like that. Okay, what you do is here, can I say j is equal to 0 here? 0 only it will come, right? So what you do is here, j is equivalent to j plus 1. If I j plus equivalent to 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? So 9 times or 10 times, right? Or what I will do is, initially 1, right? So it will take the value 1. Hello. So this is to check how many number of times the hello world got printed. 10 times, right? Range of 1, 11. If I want to print hello world 10,000 times, all I have to do just give 10,001, right? So start from 1 to till 10,000. So why 10,001? That is the syntax. You need to specify the minimum value and maximum value minus 1. The upper bound will be, this is the lower bound. Lower bound is 1. The upper bound value, how the interpreter will, the interpret is, it will subtract the value 1 from this one, right? So start from 1 to 10,000 you display, right? So this is the way. So this is an example for performing a specific task in an iterable way, right? Or multiple times. If you want to perform it, you can do it with a simple 2-line command. This j plus 1 is just for our reference, right? So how many number of lines got generated, whether it generated 10 lines correctly or not, right? 10 times the hello world got printed or not. To check that, I have used this one, okay? But ideally you can use only 2 lines of code. 2 lines of code. That is more than sufficient to print hello world, right? And fine. So now you understood this one, right? So if I want to print the same thing using the while loop, what is the difference between for loop and while loop? You can use while loop also to iterate the or to execute the set of statements multiple time, right? Multiple time based on the preset condition. So look here, in the case of while loop, it will the while and expression. This is syntax. The expression is followed by your while, but here you need to specify the condition. Only when the condition is true, the while block code, the body of your while loop will get executed. Okay, right? So we have used control statements. If CTR is less than 10, print some value. Then what is the difference between if and while? But using if, you can execute the set of your if block code or else block code only once. If you want to execute the task more than once based on some conditions, right? Then you have to use loop. Look here, as I told you, this is a classic example, right? If I wanted to print hello 10 times, I need to copy paste it manually. Print hello world 10 times, I have to copy paste it. There is too much of manual work. I don't want to do manual work by spending too much of time. Instead, we using the for loop to avoid the manual job. Please go on mute. Praveen, I'll mute you, Praveen. Yeah. So right. So this is how you need to do it, and using okay. So only when the condition, the difference between for loop and while loop is, in the case of while loop, only when the condition is true, the body of your while block will get executed. The difference between if and while and for loops, right? If you can, based on some condition, you can execute the set of your if block or else block codes, but it will get executed only once. But if you want to execute it multiple times like this, right, you want to print it 10 times or something like that, or you want to generate the values between 1 to 10, right, first you need to check the condition. Only when the condition is true in the case of while loop, it will get executed. But in the case of for loop, you don't have to increment the counter like how we did it in. You don't have to initialize the counter, and you don't have to increment the counter manually in the case of for loop. For loop, what it does is, this is your iterator variable, right? It will take the values between 1 to 10 in one after another at a time, right? So it will fetch the values or take the values from 1 to 10 at a time, right? So 10 times. But here you need to specify, in the case of for loop, you need to specify the maximum value, right? Or you need to specify the definitive value here. So till 10 you need to iterate it. Till 10 you need to iterate it. But whereas in the case of while loop, you don't have to specify the number of iterations. This is nothing but number of iterations. 10 times you need to iterate it. First time you print 1, second time go 10, till it reaches 10, right? You fetch the values. But whereas in the case of this one, you need to specify the condition. Only when the condition is true, the body will get executed. That is the difference between for loop and loop. But one the overhead with the while loop is, you need to initialize the counter, and then you need to increment the counter till the condition is true. This one has to be incremented. Okay, that is the difference between for loop and while loop. And instead of using range function, right, range is very much helpful to define the number of iterations. In number of iterations, you can you can use this one to use it. But in the case of while loop, or right, so the other one is like, instead of using range, right, you can directly specify the list also. If you have a list, you can specify the list name. Or if you have only few values in a list, you can put it directly here and take the values one after another. Okay, one after another. Got it? So this is how you need to use both for and while loop. Now you understood when we are supposed to use for and when. So there is no preset condition. You can you can use either for loop or you can use while loop. But in the case of while loop, based on the condition, you are executing all the things. Whereas here you should be knowing the total number of iterations well in advance. That is one drawback. But other advantage with for loop is, you don't have to initialize the counter value, and you don't have to increment the counter values and all. Okay. And for example, I just want to show you how to use break statement. Suppose I want to break this loop or terminate the loop based on some condition. If I is less than or equal to, or I is equivalent to 5, break. You have something called break statement, right? So you have something called break statement. So what happened here? So first time the loop, right, the control will come here. Initially it is 1, right? So 1 is equivalent to 5, no. Then it prints, right? It prints. And second time it will come back here, 2. 2 is equivalent to 5, no. Hence it prints this one. 3, 4, and 5 is equivalent to 5, right? So when 5 equal to 5, break, terminate the loop. Terminate the loop. Okay. So you can use break like this. Even in the case of while loop also, you can use if condition, right? Using if condition based on some criteria, you can terminate the loop. Okay, you can terminate the loop. The break statement causes an immediate exit from the loop. It causes an immediate exit from the loop. You might be asking, right? So already I defined the condition here. Then why should I use if condition in while also? Based on some condition, if you wanted to make your loop to come out immediately, right? But here, as long the condition is true, it will keep on executed. I don't want that to happen, but based on some condition, it has to come out of this. In that case, you can use terminate my loop at any point in time. Then you can use this one, the break statement. Okay, and the next one is you have something else called continue. Instead of this one, I'm going to say continue. Look here, what happens here? Skip the record. If I want to skip any value, see, up to 5 equal to 5, when the condition is 5 equal to 5, right? So what happens is skip the record, right? Skip the record and continue, not like break. Break, what happens when it comes, when the value of I becomes 5, right? 5 equal to 5, it immediately terminates the loop. I don't want that to terminate the loop. If the value is 5, you can exclude that, and also continue printing the rest of the values, 1 2 3 4 6 7 8 9 10, right? So for loop, while loop, now you understood how to use it. You can also use nested for loop. Inside the for, you can specify one more for, and inside the while loop, you can specify another while loop, and also you can combine both for and while. Also you can combine both for and while loops. One second, I'm getting calls from office. Just 1 minute, please. Fine. So now you understood. You can use the for loop inside the while loop, and while loop inside that one also it is possible. And what else we can see it now? The next one is like something, the nested loop. I was talking about the nested loop, right? So supposing you have something like nested for loop. Let us use a nested for loop. Okay, you have something like you have something like what do you say, color, right? So color is equivalent to red color, orange color, and then we have something called blue color, okay? And then we have something called some fruits. Apple is sort of red, and orange color is orange fruit. So here berries, I'm using berries. Next, what I'm going to for I in color, and for j in fruits, print I comma j. So what will happen is here, for each and every color, right, it will print these values. Look here. So how many for red, right? First what it does is, this is your outer loop, this is your inner loop. So what the outer loop does is, it will go and take the first value red, and within red, right? So red, and then the control will come to the next for statement. So it will, for red, it will print this one 3 times, right? Red, apple, and then see first the first element will be fetched in this outer loop, red, and then the control will come inside this inner loop. The inner loop, it will fetch all the elements, right? It will iterate all the elements that are there in your list fruits, right, for this single value. So that's what is happening. Red apple, red orange, red berries, and then the control goes back to here. So what is the next element that are there in my color, right? So next one is orange apple, orange berries, and blue apple, blue orange, blue berries. Okay, this is how you can write your nested loop. Okay, and also you can combine, right, the for and while also, right? But in the case of while, you need to increment the counter, and you need to initialize the counter well ahead. That is the thing that you need to do it. 1 second, I'm just checking. You sent any messages, any issues? Nothing, right? WhatsApp message, again any issues? Oh, okay, you tried reaching out, and because of that thing, right? Okay, fine. Audible, okay, no problem. Fine. So what are the other things that we will look at? So this is what the for loop, while loop, and nested loop, how to use. It's a very basic thing, right? So next, what we will jump into understanding the functions. Functions are very important concept in almost all the programming, all the programming languages. And one way it is good. Our friend Praveen is also available. Next, we will see where is this here? Function. In the latest session, it is not available, right? To go to the specific thing. Reason why we are using function is for reusability. For reusability purpose, we are using function. What do you mean by reusability? Once you define it, right, you can use it over and over and over again, right? You can invoke the same function many times. Create once and you can invoke it as many times as you need it. The other reason is you can define a logical structure for your program by breaking it down into a number of small chunks. Okay, the first reason is reusability. Reusability is nothing but define a function and you can invoke the functions as many times as you need it. Okay, and the other reason is modularity. Right, you need to have some kind of logical structure, because in real-time scenario, we'll be writing lines and lines of code, thousands and thousands of code, right? If you write everything in sequential fashion, and if you use the same commands repeatedly to achieve implement some functionality, it will be clumsy, right? Your code will be clumsy. Hence, you need to have some modularity. Supposing you want to calculate the gross salary. Gross salary, you must be using some formula or some business logic. Based on some business logic, you compute the gross salary. And based on some condition, you will compute the net salary, gross salary, net salary. So gross salary, what formula that used it, right? So you put it in one function. And another function is, which logic that you used it to compute the net salary. For that, use another function, right? So in that way, it will be easier for you to troubleshoot later point in time, or if you want to make any changes to your script, right? Go to a specific function and make changes there, right? So that is and also your code will be readable. That is the best practice, right? So you have your script should be modular and it should be reusable, right? Obviously the functions are used for reusability purpose. And also we'll discuss about method later. Okay, when I cover the OOPS concept, we'll discuss about it. So what is so special about functions, right? So it is a block of code using which you can carry out a specific task repeatedly. A function may contain 0 or more than 1 arguments. You can use an argument, or you don't have to use any arguments to use a function. And the next question is, why do you have to use function? Why do you have to use function? For this, I already explained. Right? So, for modularity purpose, reusability purpose, we are supposed to use a function. And also to reduce the coupling. What do you mean by coupling? What do you mean by coupling? Can someone tell me? There should not be any dependency. If you include all the logic in a single function, it will not be good, right? Your function should be, let's say your function, the function which you write it is common for more than one module, right? In that case, it should be each module should come and access the specific function, the common function, okay? In that case, right, your function should should not have any coupling there, okay? That is what coupling is all about. So you have something on loose coupling, and strong cohesion. You need to have the loose coupling. There should not be too much of dependence on a single function alone. Reduce the dependence on a single function. That is where the modularity comes into picture. And eliminate redundancy. If you use function, you can eliminate the redundancy. Supposing you have 10,000 employees are there. Each and every person, if you write a script, salary of Rajesh, basic salary plus HRA plus dearness allowance minus leaves taken. For each and every person, if you write the same formula in your script, it will be redundant, duplicate, right? Duplicate of the script should not be there. So for that reason only we will be using function. So what you need to just apply the function for each and every employee. What happens is it will compute the net salary or gross salary automatically, right? So the script, you are computing the gross salary and net salary. For that script, right, the logic will be available in only one place. It is not repeated multiple times. So in Python we have built-in functions are available like other languages, like a help function, print function, minimum, min function, max function, sum function, len function. Likewise many functions are case, fold, right? Likewise different functions are available. And also we can create our own functions. That is what called as user-defined function. Apart from this, anonymous function. How many of you are aware of this anonymous function, lambda function? Lambda function is very specific to Python, and also lambda function is available in Java also, in Java 8, and importantly Spark also the lambda function is available. Lambda is the anonymous function. You don't have to define a function by a name. You can, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the RDBMS concept called anonymous function, right? So anonymous function, anonymous stored procedure, right? It is same as that one. So built-in function, we don't have to write it. The built-in functions are already available. And user-defined function, we have to write it based on the business logic which you want to implement it to process your data or so. And the anonymous functions, function is nothing but your lambda function. Using lambda function, also you can implement reusability. Okay. Now let us understand what is the difference between user-defined function and anonymous function. When we are supposed to use user-defined function, when we are supposed to use the lambda function. Okay. And also we will see what is argument, what is calling function, what is called function. All the things we will take a look at it. And also we will see what is positional parameter, what is variable argument parameter, what is keyword arguments, all the things we will take a look at it. So before that, before we dive into understanding all those things, let us go step by step in understanding how to define a user-defined function. What is the syntax for that? This is the syntax. This is the syntax for this. Okay, so what does it say here? The def, right, the function should always, the user-defined function, you need to define it with the keyword def. This is important. Okay, this is the reserved word. If you want to create your own function, you need to start with the keyword def. Right? So this is the one, and followed by the def, you need to specify your function name. You can specify whatever the name that you needed, and then inside the parenthesis you need to specify the parameter list, but it is optional. Either you can use a parameter or you don't have to use any parameter, and you can use a default parameter by assigning the value to the parameter here itself. Okay, there's something called default parameter, or you have something called keyword parameter. That and all we'll see it a little later. And so followed by the parenthesis, you need to specify the colon. This is your function body. Inside the function body, you can specify all these set of instructions, and finally you need to use return statement. A return and then expression. Return the expression. So what is a return statement? So you know what is the function body? All these statements, right? All these statements inside the function body will get executed, and the return will the return will return the values to your variable or a function. Even this one is also option. Okay, if you use the return statement, so this is the last statement of your function. The return supposed to be the last statement of your user defined function, and you can return a value, or you don't have to return a value. You have something on none, none. If you don't specify any expression, it will return none, none. Okay, or you can specify explicitly none, or you can specify the variable name here. Okay, so or the value, the variable which holds the values, right? You can specify that variable name here. Okay, so that this value will get assigned to another variable. Okay, we'll start creating a simple function, and then we will see the rest of the things. How do I define a function, user defined function? You need to use the keyword def, and then, for example, add me. Okay, let's say I'm going to specify x comma y, and then I'm going to say print x plus y. This is my simple function definition. I created a function. Look here, the first statement is supposed to be your key reserved. The reserved keyword is def to define user. So you can specify whatever the name that you wanted. Okay, add me. I mentioned add underscore me, or you can specify whatever value you needed. And inside the parenthesis, I specified the arguments x comma y, or you can say it's a parameter. X is a parameter, y is a parameter. Print x plus y. The next line, right? So you need to specify colon. Colon is to specify, so where your block of code or body of your code, right? So block, when the interpreter encounters the colon, that means okay, followed by the colon, the block, the function body starts. That is how it understands. Now I executed this one and no error, nothing. Now I'm going to call this function. Just defining a function is not sufficient. I need to use it, right? So 5 comma 5. If I use this, if I pass the value, it says print x plus y 10. I can assign a function to a variable also. For example, I have something called compute, right? So compute here, add me. I can assign a function to a variable also. Look here. Okay, here I need to specify the values for the 5 comma 5, right? So 5 comma 5, or I can say add me. I can do it this way also, right? And compute 5 comma 5. But if I use the parenthesis here itself, right, 5 comma 5, then I don't have to do this one here. Object is not callable. Okay, you need to say compute, because this one will get executed, right, and the resultant value will get stored in compute, and this one will print this one, right, compute. Fine. So add me. So now what happened here? What is the difference between these two? Here I just specify the address location of this function, like how in Python or other language, right, a variable can have a memory location, right? A variable is nothing but the memory location, right? So you just think that roughly. So if I don't use parenthesis, the function will not get called or invoked. It will not call this function. Instead, the address location of this function will get assigned to this variable. Now you can use the parenthesis directly here. Now compute is your function, not add me, because the compute is nothing but it is pointing to the address location of add underscore me. And if I pass the value 5 comma 5, right? So this one will get passed here because the compute is pointing to add me location for this thing, right? And then these two values get passed here, and then the 10 it returns the value 10, right? And now let us see here, right? So here what happens is, here itself I use the parenthesis instead of specifying like this function name alone followed by the function name. I specified the parenthesis, but I need to specify the arguments for sure. Okay, 5 comma 5. If I specify only one argument instead of one argument, instead of two argument, if I specify only one argument, it will throw an error. Look here, missing one required positional argument. This is called your positional argument. Okay, you need, that means you need to pass one more argument, because in your function definition you mentioned two parameters, but here you are passing only one argument. Then you missed out something, I will not work. So you need to specify this one. So here you are just assigning this function's address to this one. Hence you can invoke directly by passing the values to this variable. This variable now became the function add me. But here you are invoking the function directly, and then the output value you store it in compute. The compute will store it. But here you cannot use parenthesis. Why? There is nothing called the compute is not a function, because it is not pointing to add underscore me function. It is storing, it has the value returned by this function. It is not a function at all. But whereas here you just made this variable compute also as a function, roughly speaking. That is what is happening. Hope you understood. It's a very basic thing. Most of them, they don't understand these things. Okay, fine. So now I wanted to do some kind of calculation. Okay, so let's see, it is throwing an error. Look here, I just executed 1 second. Yeah, maybe because of that, right? Okay, now this variable compute is holding the value 10, right? If I add 10 with 10, it is not working. Why? Why it's not working? It is just printing the value. It is not returning the value. Instead of this, if I use something like the return statement, instead of print x plus y, I'm going to use something like a return. And if I do something like this, add me 5 comma 5, and then if I do like this, see, that is the reason why we have to use return. Return statement will assign the value to your variable. This is the very, very basic thing, right? Most of them, right, they don't understand. They directly jump in, assign. So simply, right, you can call this function directly like this, add underscore me 5 comma 5. That is fine. But if I assign this function value to a variable, I can do further arithmetic operation. But in the earlier case, I was using print statement. Instead of return statement, I use print x plus y. But still it was invoking the function, and then it was printing the value 10. It is not, in this case, it did not assign the value 10 to the variable, right? It just printed the, right, whatever the value printed, this one, that one got stored here, and it displayed it here. Actually, the value was not literally assigned here. Had it got assigned literally to compute, it would have added 10 with 10, and it should have returned 20, right? It was not doing that. What I will do is, logically I will put this one here also, so that you should not get confused when I share this script. So most of them, right, they come back to me saying that, Satya, I executed this one, and and then still it returns 10. So first you need to right, so here I use return statement, right? So the add me function, for this I am passing 5 comma 5, right? So here this is my positional parameter. This is my actual parameter. You are passing, simply you are passing the value or assigning the phi to this first argument x, and the second argument, right, the position, the original or actual parameter value to the second positional parameter y. You just copying these values here. So behind the scene, it is copying the value to the respective variable. And then the other condition is, whatever the number of arguments or the parameters you used it in your function, right, you need to pass the corresponding actual values when you invoke this function. So when I invoke this function, how to invoke a function? Just specify the function name, and inside the parenthesis pass the parameters, right? This is the actual parameter. So this one will get copied, this one will get copied here. So now you understood the importance of the return statement assigns the value to your variable that are there on your left side. The return statement is the last statement of your function. Fine. So you understood this one, right? Fine. The next question is, supposing I was talking about the positional argument, right? So what is positional argument? Right? What is positional argument? Positional argument is nothing but the x comma y, right? X comma y or the positional argument, right? Positional. So here the x comma y are passed by reference, right? So the x comma y are the arguments of my add underscore me function. The x comma y are passed by reference here. See the memory address of the phi comma phi, right? So sorry, the memory address of the x comma y are passed here. That is what is happening here. Okay. So when I use this in add me phi comma phi, right? So what happens is the values will get assigned to the respective this one. And suppose I wanted to, let's do one thing. Let's take one real-time example. For example, you have something called basic and you have something called HRA and LOP, loss of pay. Okay. And I wanted to return something like basic plus HRA minus LOP. Here I am going to say, right, net something like net sal something like that. Okay, I create a function, so I want to use net sal. So how many values that I need to pass it, because since I'm using 3 parameters, I need to pass the values for 3 these 3 parameters, right? So 10,000 or let's say 100,000, and HRA is, let's 10,000, and loss of pay is, 4,000. If I execute this one, it will return 1,06,000. This is my net salary. Supposing if I change here, the order matters. Here the order matters. Instead of passing the basic as 100,000, if you think the 10,000 will get passed to HRA and right, but you're not supposed to change the order of while you pass the values or while you invoke the function. The order of the actual values are supposed to be in line with this one. You cannot specify HRA first, because HRA you define it in the middle, right? You cannot specify it 10,000 here. It will get confused, right? It's something like garbage in, garbage out. So whatever the order that you specified it inside the parenthesis for the parameter, you need to pass it that way. You need to pass the value accordingly, right? So the next one is, okay, I just wanted to assign the default parameter. So what is the default parameter? Listen, instead of specifying, passing the values here, right, I am going to say 100,000 directly here. And HRA is equivalent to 10,000, right? So 10,000, and LOP I am not going to pass it here. Net sal of what is that? LOP is 4,000. Will it work? Will it work? So non-default argument follows a default argument. For example, I am going to say, so with this what we understood was like, non-default argument follows default argument, right? So this is a non-default argument, right? So for example, if I say LOP is 4,000 here, okay, or if I don't say anything here, here I'm not going to say anything. Will it work? Basic is not defined. Sorry, you need to say here basic. See, the reason why I go in depth when it comes to function, you need to understand this functionality thoroughly, right? This thing, right? How to define a function and how to implement it, because it's very sensitive. If it throws an error, it is fine. So, or the other advantage is interview. They define something like this, and then they will give multiple choice, in the case of MCQ, right? Multiple answers. The error is this one or this one. You will get confused, right? So, what do we conclude here? Your non-default argument supposed to be first, right? Followed by the non-default argument only. You need to specify the default values for your parameter. Okay, the next thing is I'm going to remove this one. Will it work here? LOP I mentioned it. HRA assign the value, but in the second position if I say 4,000, will it work? Sorry, 4,000, right? Non-default argument follows default argument. So what do we conclude here is your the non-default. So the non-default argument should be first, followed by the non-default argument only. You can, followed by the non-default argument only. You have to specify the non-default arguments. Sorry, I confused. See, what is the non-default argument here? So base equal to 10,000, right? So look here, net sal I mentioned for 4,000. So this is what? So here the default, this is called the default argument, because I assign the values to these arguments here itself. But problem is, the last argument was not a default argument, it's a non-default argument. Non-default argument should not follow the default argument. So I just fix this issue by writing like this, right? So here your non-default argument, I defined it first, and the default argument I specified followed by this one. Now no error. So, but here what I did, I just specified the non-default argument first, and the last also specified the non-default argument. It is throwing an error. So always the non-default argument should be defined first, and then only your default argument should be defined, right? So what we will do is we will copy paste it here. So here what I'm going to do is, this is a non-default argument, right? So, and let's say HRA, this already we discussed, right? Anyhow, I'll just HRA, and next one is 4,000. So your HRA is 10,000. This one will work, because your the simple thing is your default argument should be followed by the non-default. It should not be in between. It should not be the first one, right? Or it should not be followed by a non-default argument. So now it works. Fine. So this is what the positional argument, right? So you need to pass the value correctly, and this is what, sorry, this is what we call it as a keyword argument. This is what we call as a keyword, right? We use the keyword here. So LOP, sorry, this is default parameter. Yeah, we have something else called keyword parameter. 1 second. Okay, so now the question is, 1 second. So this is what the problem, right? Look here. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say LOP is equivalent to 4000. Will it work here? While passing the argument, wait. Here I'm going to say basic is equivalent to, this is called your keyword, non-default argument. So even in this case also, you need to specify this one here. For example, forget about the default parameter. So default parameter, you are clear, right? Maybe it will be confusing because I tried all possible combination. The simple rule of thumb is your your non-default argument should follow your default argument. It should not be in between. Okay, so it should the first argument, if you are using the default argument, right, then the default argument should be followed by the default argument. That is what you need to remember it. And next thing is, okay, as I told you earlier, right, so the values when you pass it, let's say I'm going to pass the value here, right, the order matters here. For example, 100,000 is basic and HRA is 10,000 and LOP is, what is it, LOP is 4,000, right? So is there any way I can change the order while invoking the function? That is where keyword argument comes into picture. You can change the order also. When you pass the argument to your function, you can change the order also using the keyword argument. Okay. So for example, here I say 100,000 and I say, this is what my basic and this is what my, let's say, the HRA, this is what my LOP. You can change the order also. See, this is called your keyword order, but because you explicitly mention the argument name, you cannot specify some other value here. Okay, so whatever the argument that you are using it, right, the same parameter, right, the same parameter you need to specify it here. Okay, and HRA is equal to 10,000, basic is equal to 100,000. Here we are specifying the keyword argument. The argument is keyword here. You mentioned the argument key, the actual argument name here itself. So in this case, the order doesn't matter. It can be in any order. This is what called as your keyword argument. See, many of them, they don't cover all these things. Though it appears, difficult to understand, but this is very important. This is called your keyword argument. So in this case, you can do it this way. And let's can I combine both the keyword argument and the default parameter? Yes, 100,000 and HRA and LOP, right? So yes. Non-default argument, right? So non-default argument follows default argument. So even in the case of keyword argument, right, your non-default argument should not follow the default argument. Okay, the same rule is applicable here also. Okay, the same rule is applicable here also. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to say will it work if I specify like this? Your non-default parameters were followed by the default parameter, though I am using the keyword parameter, right? So here I am not going to say anything here because the last one I passed it, but here I can change the order because I am using the, that is the only difference. While calling the function, you can change the order using the keyword. You can combine both the default as well as the non-default argument. But while you combine the default with the non-default, make sure that your non-default argument should be defined first, followed by the non-default argument only. You need to specify default argument. Even though when you use the keyword argument while you call the function, the same rule is applicable here also. Right, so here I combine both, combine the default keyword argument with default. See here the combine the keyword, right? Don't get confused here, okay? The combine the keyword is in the calling function, right? I'll write it here. Yeah, right. So used keyword argument with the default argument in the function definition. The only advantage of the keyword argument is you can change the order. But this is one way it is good because especially in real-time scenario, we'll be using 10 variables, 10 arguments or 15 arguments also. There could be chances that you might tend to pass the wrong values when you invoke the function. Because so many arguments are there while specifying the values, right? You might, instead of saying 10,000, you might tend to pass, 100,000, you might tend to pass 10,000 for the basic. If you specify explicitly like this, you can overcome that issue. Got it? So this is what called as keyword argument. And okay, it's already 8:40, right? So what we will do is 6:30, right? We start 7:30, 8:30, 8:40. Okay. So you must be tired already, right? Because let's say I just send this one to your email ID. Right, what I do is I will have to download. How do I download this? Click file, download as. Now go to download as. Ideally, what a notebook IPyNB. When you download this file, the extension of this file day3_functions will be like .IPyNB. Let's download it. What happens? See. Look here, day3_function.ipynb. So now show in folder. So this is the one I will be sending it to your WhatsApp thing. Once you download this in your local system from your WhatsApp thing, right? So what you need to is, just start your Python Jupyter notebook. Go to the dashboard, and what you do is you just drag this. So you need to drag this and drop it just below this line. Okay, for example, I am going to drop this just below this line. Don't do it above this or on top of this. You need to do it here. When you drop it, it will show something like upload. When you click upload, this one will be part of your Jupyter notebook. For example, I call here itself, I am going to rename it because this file is already there, and upload it. Uploaded, right? So now let's say day 3, if I type it, the control F if I do, look here, this file got imported in my system's Jupyter notebook. So when you double click on this, you can see whatever the thing that I said. Hope you understood, right? How to download, how to drag and drop into your Jupyter notebook. Follow this and just go through on it. Okay, we will discuss about variable arguments and variable keyword arguments in the next session. Okay, in the upcoming weekend we will discuss it. Okay, so the timings, everything will communicate to you as I told you, right? So the next week and the followed by the next weekend are critical. I will have to complete them. So once that is done, right, we will get into this timings, right? 6:30 or so, 6:30 to 8:30. Okay, I usually stick to the timeline. Rarely, like how I how I could not follow the timeline to that. Rarely it will happen. Don't worry. Okay, don't think, right? So this guy is taking time and all. Another reason I told you, COVID also. Other reason, salary like anything. Okay, don't forget that. Important. Also, it's all very decent job, and the